Hello, everyone. Good
Hello.
afternoon.
Afternoon. Yeah. Welcome back. Another episode of Agile Leadership. Is that right, TK?
Agile
Or is that what
Leadership
we're
with
doing?
Humble Associates, the second
Yeah.
episode about the leadership circle.
That's it. Yeah.
So today we'll talk about an exciting tool on how you can improve your leadership skills and make sure that you are growing agility in a proper leadership way. So Arif, when did you first learn about the leadership circle?
Oh, that's a good, that's a good question. I think it's been over a year now, isn't it, TK? I think we've been working
Yeah.
with it for over a year now, as a tool, as a way to help leaders, organizations understand what kind of dimensions of leadership are required in order to
Hmm.
foster agility, right? But yeah, it's probably been over a year now, and it's been a fascinating journey for me as well. Learning, understanding, using it with leaders, and having those really aha moments with them to really get them to understand their own leadership practices, behaviors, do some self reflection with them, and support them on a journey, basically. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's quite true. And by the way, thank you for our viewers for being here. If you're here, give
yes.
us a thumbs up or make a comment, say hi, we'll say back. And if you've heard about the leadership circle, let us know in the comments. We always love to hear from you. We always want to make this session interactive. Um, so I remember where I've learned about it. It was quite some time ago. I knew this was a great leadership tool, but I never had a chance to like properly learn it and so on. And I've always neglected it until such time I actually, yeah, took the course, took the certification, and started working with people. I
Yeah.
think 2 years ago, and I remember we've introduced it to the way we did things in Humble Associates. We had a couple of online workshops, public and with our clients, and now we're working with a bunch of clients, actually applying it to help with leadership. So yeah, so let us know that you're here. Comment if you know anything about the leadership circle. I'm going to go through what it is and
Yes.
why we think it's helpful, and we'll talk about some stories.
I think
So yeah, go ahead, Arif.
worth just also just for our viewers, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat as well. We'll
The
obviously
chat.
answer them, and any comments or opinions in the chat too. So we'll look at them. I'm looking at them definitely as we go through the next 27 minutes or so,
We
and
love the comments
we'll,
and opinions.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, do put something in. And then I think it's important for our viewers to understand, or hopefully we'll cover that, is what makes this unique when it comes to agility, or why do we believe it's really vital when it comes to agility?
Good
I
point,
think
Arif,
that's going
and
to
we'll
be something.
definitely talk about it. But let's start with where it came from.
Yes.
So we've got Karen Honey, Robert Keegan, and Bob Anderson. They all uh, worked on by taking each other's work and improving on it, or taking bits out of it and making sure they evolve it. So it's the model is properly academic. I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it that actually has scientific grounds and some proper evidence-based studies came into it. It's not that it's a proper book. So Karen was a good old-time psychologist and a psychoanalyst living in the beginning of the 20th century. She came up with some interesting concepts, which we're going to talk about. Then Robert Keegan is our contemporary, and he works on the concept of adult development. I won't be going into that much right now, but then we've got Bob Anderson that actually invented the leadership circle as a model. I think you've seen a couple of his videos, Arif.
I have very charismatic speaker, shall we
Indeed, he
say?
is. Yes,
Yeah,
and
and
always
quite
shares his
knowledgeable.
personal stories and so on. So you might want to read up on these people if you're interested where this work came from. But essentially, what Bob Anderson did is he broke, or this is actually goes back to Karen Honey. They broke the way we interact with the world and the way we lead into three categories. And I also put my
Mm.
own spin on it as humble associates. We've changed it just a bit to maybe fit the language of agility. So there's three types of leaders that the leadership circle talks about, and the first one is the leader of the heart. Arif, would you care to explain what a heart leader is?
Oh gosh, I mean, this is someone. It's all about building and growing relationships for this type of person, isn't it? I think
It
that's
is.
key for that person. They're really interested in how making sure people feel accepted, there's belonging, and that's really critical to that type of leader. But there are some circumstances where that can be affecting
Mm.
to that person as well, where they may become more overly pleasing of others as well. So people pleasing type traits can come in if they're in a place where the environment around them is really making them feel unwanted and not feeling belonged, right? So
Yeah,
that can
it's a
have
good
its
point.
drawbacks. But yeah, but that's in a nutshell the type of person we're talking about.
So
Have I got
essentially,
that
a
right,
person that,
TK?
yeah, that derives their value from belonging, a person that really likes to
Yes,
be liked, the
likes to
person
be
that,
like.
likes harmony and so on. We probably know quite a few people like this.
Yes, I'm sure viewers too. You could probably find those people.
Well,
Yeah.
have you had any bosses or leaders that have been this type, Arif, without pointing names?
Oh no, without pointing names, I think. Can I think of heart type leader? Yes, I can think of one or two. Who very much were caring about me as a person.
Hmm.
But they themselves probably didn't. Um, how can I put this? Didn't last long in the organizations as well. Very oddly,
Oh.
yeah, it's very odd. But maybe that's there's something in there, definitely.
Oh yeah, I know that I had a boss that was a hard type leader. In my personal opinion, um, it's interesting because, well, I don't know if I would mesh well with them, as you know
Ah,
me, Arif, and
yes,
I guess our viewers know a thing or two about me because Coach on the Rocks and all these kinds of things. It's sometimes maybe annoying, but then again, it's valuable as everything is, and I think that a hard type leader can definitely read the room, which is quite an important skill.
definitely.
So the
Yeah.
second what type, the leader of the mind. Um, so Arif, you had a go last time, so yeah, why don't you continue and let us know what do you think a leader of the mind is?
Well, well, this type of person is, I think, it's all about their own prowess, right?
Hmm.
Very important to them. You know, their their intellectual ability. They lead with that front foot forward. They are very much into trying to solve the problem, being very since I suppose authentic, showing up who they are. Their feelings and thoughts are very clear and visible. There's not much of a filter, shall we say? There may not be, and obviously that can have its downsides too, right? No filter. Well, what happens when that happens? Well, excuse me. What can be the impact of that? Could get you into tricky situations, or it may well do. And so, as you said, TK, it may not be to everyone's liking, and people
Yeah, indeed,
can
all of
can
them can
can
be
get,
this
yeah,
way.
exactly. But yeah, definitely this. But in terms of getting results, very very powerful stance to lead with.
It's interesting, because I do lead from this stance myself, and I do try to filter myself, as Arif, not always
Definitely
successfully.
do try.
Yeah, but the thing is, as every style, this can be annoying. I'm trying to think about the leaders I had from this style, and it's unfortunately can be quite a dry person. If you apply a pure mind leader, it's sometimes even devoid of emotion, because for this person the intellectual side is important, and it can be very difficult to maybe find the human connection. But on the other hand, there's this natural way of being authentic, which is cool. Which is is like, you might find me that sometimes I am paying things forward or paying things back in terms of I'll be more honest than people usually will were with me, just because I
Yeah,
want to maybe see that it can work. Is being
yeah,
very focused on values, very honest, but sometimes it means like very upfront and too candid. it's important that a mind type leader is recognized for their ideas, because this is how they derive their value, right? For a mind type leader, ideas are what defines them, which is important. But then again, it can be positive, it can be negative. It all depends. As always, it all depends on who you're dealing with and what situation is.
I th- What
Hmm?
were you worth just reminding of you the linking? We'll get through the third one, and then we can
Oh
remind our
yes, we'll
viewers
remind
how this
them about the
links.
linking, and the circle
Yeah,
is towards the end after the two sides, Arif. But do you know what the next style is?
we've got the will
Yes, we
type
do.
leader,
Yes, we
haven't we?
do.
Yeah.
So what about this one, Arif?
So I mean, I think this is very much where we show. Okay, it's not about the rather than about the being the intellect and the person's abilities. This is more about that willingness, the passion, the drive, demonstrating all of that in how you get work done, right?
Hmm.
So they can attract people because they're the type follow that person. He's the guy will go, attract a lot of followers.
Yeah.
That can happen, but then what may happen if that person is not in a great place is they then are looking at, okay, well, why isn't the work happening, why aren't you doing this,
Yeah.
why is that, and then so you get into other traits like micromanagement can come about and excessive command control.
Not
So
fun
that
stuff.
that
Yeah.
that not great, not great. So that's the other side of the will type leader. So has its positives and has its drawbacks, of course.
But we've all seen a great many of these kinds of leaders, haven't we?
Yes, yeah, I
They're the
think we
most
have.
popular one that
Yeah,
actually
they are the
get
most
get
exactly.
promoted and placed into places of leadership. Why do you think it might be, Arif?
And well, that it goes back to the charisma thing, right? And
Hmm.
we look at our leaders in the world around us, right? If we're talking about world leaders, people, power, excuse me, politics, what do we see there? It's the less of the substance and more of how they portray themselves. So they are great to attract people to a cause or a following or something of that nature. But in terms of being able to execute and getting work done in the right way, etc., all of that, maybe not well suited for that. So they require people around them who can do all of that.
Yeah,
I suppose
yeah,
heavy lifting, shall we say?
it's quite true, and I guess we all do. But the important thing here is to note that these are popular because results speak more than anything else.
That's
As
it.
I
Yeah,
always say in the second pillar of agility, it's all about tangible outcomes. And these people focus on it quite a lot. So one would say
excuse me.
these can be very agile. It's interesting how all of them can grow, but also poison agility, and we'll talk about it some more. But you might have seen, our dear viewers, that there's positive and negatives for each of the styles. And by the way, if you have any comments or you think one style is more preferable than the other, let us know. Give us a like if you're there, and we will move on to the fact that, as I said, they all have two sides of the coin.
And also
Yeah.
quickly, if you recognize any of them in yourself, then let us know. It'd
Mm.
be really nice to engage in that and see what are
Yes.
your thoughts. Do you
We
see?
normally had like when we do it as a workshop, not as a webinar, we have a bit of a
A game?
gesture, a gesture
Yes,
thing. Yes, but we won't do it right now because we can't see you, and we can do all the gestures we can. But I guess if you're listening and if you're participating in our live shows and maybe working with us, you might have an idea what styles we use to lead. So it shouldn't be any
exactly.
difficulty for you. So yeah, two sides of the same coin means that every every Bogdan, hello, lovely to see you. There are transaction leaders that would need transition from one style to another. Well, it's interesting, Bogdan, because I do believe it's difficult to transition from one style to the other because this is quite deeply rooted in your personality, and this is where Helen Honey's work comes in. And this basically is quite deeply rooted. Now, obviously, one would say that you might want to be a balanced leader, that you might want to have the positive sides on all of them, but no negative. But I don't think it's possible. And we'll talk about these two sides in a moment, but in fact, I think all of them can be very positive.
Yeah, I think we're not saying any one is negative per se. Maybe
Yeah. No.
I phrased
And it's
some of them
interesting when it comes to being transitional. Um,
transactional.
oh, sorry,
Yeah,
transactional. Yes.
yeah.
I think, it's I can see people moving, yes, but it usually is a bigger shift in their lives. So, people's personalities and characters do change and do evolve, but the leadership style is just, shall I say, a symptom of a
Hmm.
wider change that would have to happen within them. But Bogdan, thank you for your comment. Um, Lovely stuff there. So yes, two sides of the same coin. So what can happen is we can develop leadership in different ways. So you've talked, Arif, a lot about this negative side, which is the reactive side.
Yeah.
So what the reactive side is you can think, what if you're really stressed, really tired, under threat, and whatever leadership style that you have will not necessarily come out as positive in these circumstances.
Hmm.
You're reacting to something, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, from what Bob Anderson, what they're talking about is when the key phrase used there, TK, under threat,
Mm.
right? So you're in a place where you're being driven by fear, isn't it?
Hmm.
And so there is something is not right in your system, in the world around you, and so that is causing you to fall into some negative traits or behaviors, and you feel threatened, you
Yes.
feel unsafe,
You need
and
to
so when you
protect
feel
yourself. Yeah.
you need to protect yourself. So when that happens, what we're saying is you can get into this reactive state, and unfortunately it's like a vicious cycle, isn't it? You're there, it's a self-repeating, so you behave reactive, you react in a negative way, it increases that negative feeling,
Mm.
and then again more reactive, so you're in that loop. How do you get out of it? That's the question.
That
What do we
is the
say?
question, but it's probably a question for another episode. But
Another
there's
episode,
something
fair
that we
enough.
need to consider. This side is always within us. This is the side, the side and the
Yes.
stance we have our roots in. It's like the amygdala hijack or this, brain of a lizard. There's various models that come into that, but essentially what it is in our primal core we do have this. There's a reason we do have this because it's just important sometimes for survival. So Bogdan says reactive style very common in the retail industry. Um, dare I say, Bogdan, is very common in every industry because it's just how a lot of people behave. You can just switch on the TV and see all the negativity. It comes from here. It comes from people reacting to the circumstances in a way they feel like is the only way they know. Sometimes aggression, sometimes well, yes, that's a good one. What you said, Bogdan, the sense of urgency to having to attend to clients. But for instance, we work with an aircraft manufacturer, and there's a lot of sense of urgency there. You can imagine what happens during an emergency. They actually drill for that. You can imagine what happens when a company is really innovative, and you've got investors coming in, and you really have to crunch and get things done. In any industry, there are situations when that demand a lot from you. One would say, "Oh, IT." Well, yeah, if you're doing support and you're working, and I've worked in banks, and I know what happens when critical systems go down, and the bank CEO receives a call from the Financial Conduct Authority, and yeah, it's getting the reactive side out of people. I'll tell you what.
Mm.
So that's an interesting thing that can happen, but there is obviously the second side of the coin, the creative one. So what's a creative one, RF?
Well, I mean, this is when you're in the state of flow, I think, isn't it? Where really you are in a settled place, and again, there is some self-fulfillingness where you have a clear vision of yourself, where you
Mm.
want to get to in life, what you want to achieve, and that then drives how you're or affects how you then behave and show up, right? And you then are more capable to act with everything fully present. You're more present. You got everything around you. You got your senses with you, and you can lead in a more wholesome way.
In a more wholesome way, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So
Uh,
that's how I would
I guess this is
describe
the
it.
state of proper leadership.
Mm.
Creative doesn't mean that you're being creative and you can create drawings, videos, and other wonderful stuff, or live shows on LinkedIn, as we do. But it's all about taking responsibility for the reality around you. You're not reacting to it in the reactive style, but you're creating it. You're taking charge.
That's
So
it. Yeah.
I usually ask the question, and it's an interesting one. Can you, Arif, can you be a leader without followers?
This is I don't think so. So this is what I was listening to. We've posted it a couple of times, but last couple of
Mm.
weeks. But Henry Cravin, who I was at an event with, and so he that's what he was saying. If you're a leader, you have followers. So, and if you have followers, then well, then the question is, what's the point of having followers if you don't listen to your followers?
Ah, that's a
And
good one, right? So,
if you just exactly if you just ignore them and you're doing what you want, irrespective of your followers, then there's some real question marks in your ability to lead. That was
oh,
what he was.
that's a good one. That's a different angle to what I'm usually thinking
Oh,
about, because
go
there's a
on.
lot of leaders that are leaders within, but no one is following them yet.
Ah, okay,
So you
right.
can have that happening, right? And I
Yeah,
believe
yeah,
these
yeah,
people
yeah,
are leaders. But
yeah.
what Bogdan says is, yeah, it's a really a swing from the will to creative. It's interesting because you've got when they were their best. Like, I don't know, let's you've got Winston Churchill, for instance. You've got Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah, they're big figures, but in their best of times, they were creative will leaders. We know them as great leaders. They're also great leader women, but I'm not going to name names of British prime ministers. Somehow we're not lucky with that. But when it comes to that, there are leaders that lead from the will that can be creative. It's just unfortunately, maybe they get adjusted to being reactive. Maybe sometimes we play the role the world is expecting us to play. The world is expecting us to be a rough and tumble and a very tough will leader. So we are. Even if within us we can find creative moments, and I'm sure even these difficult will leaders are able to be creative. But sometimes maybe they just got used to it, or maybe this is what we're expecting of them. Even though we don't want to say this, even though we can be autonomous, sometimes maybe we're afraid to take charge ourselves and take initiative, and we're just looking for someone to give us the answers.
Mm.
And thus, the will type leader is not able to get the best out of us because we're just forcing them to be reactive. It's like, oh man, I have to tell you what to do. And it's like, I see that all the time. There's, I had many friends that really complained on their house renovation projects where the contractors were awful. And I think they were awful because they were expecting them to be awful. I don't know. What about your contractors, Harif?
I've not had that situation, so
You haven't see because you
no.
probably were expecting them to actually do a good job.
Well, I mean, yeah, I got good recommendations, and I think there's also this flexibility mindset you have to have. It is about the expectations as well, but yeah,
And you seem to
uh,
be a good leader, being able to get the best out of your contractors. I also
I,
doesn't have
I
many
I
problems, right?
I didn't have good luck with the first one. The second one was much better. Let's put it that way.
I saw my electrician today, and we still are on speaking terms. So that
That's good.
proves
Well,
something. Even being
that,
a mind type leader, well, maybe I just planned everything and like managed all the risks and bought. Yeah,
so
so go ahead,
PK,
Aaron.
let's move on to where are we
Yes.
going next? So
Well,
how does
because
this
we're
link
talking
to
about the fact that it's all in a circle. All
how
these
does it
things
link
are
to
a circle.
agility? That's what we
Well,
need to tell our viewers, right?
well, this is actually quite an interesting one because all of these things, as you can see, being in a circle, they are all interconnected and they all can be growers and poisoners of agility.
Right. Okay. That's
So,
what you're
so
saying.
what can happen, Arif, is we talked about the aspects of leadership which is will based. It can grow agility, but it can also poison it. And this is a simplified version of the circle, but it has many aspects, many shades that we will probably talk about on one of our next sessions. And some of them are um, very helpful for agility to grow. Some of them are very intrinsically poisonous. Like for instance, control. Like control is quite on the reactive side over here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, probably not. But it's quite low in the yellow spectrum. Arrogance is at the bottom, very reactive in the mind space, and compliance can be very hard. Maybe you don't want to change things, you don't want to inspect and adapt because people don't want to get feedback from real data or they don't want to be bothered. So they can really poison agility. What's Bogdan saying? I believe it's not about luck, Arif. It's what you learn from your there you go. You had good experiences and some good examples.
There you go.
Good
Yeah,
stuff, Bogdan.
indeed.
Thank you. It's a
Thanks,
great
Bogdan.
thought. I also, well, we all had great bosses. Sometimes we had great parents. Sometimes we had great other family members, teachers, and so on. There's all kinds of people that are shaping us. So, Arif, what do you think are the major growers and poisoners in terms of agility? Like the highlights from you,
Well,
from the
I mean,
leaders.
well, I think we're gonna cover in more detail. I think next time, isn't it, with the
Hmm.
time that we've got so left. So, but in terms of what we can see here, it's the creative side that we're looking at, and what elements of those creative side that cover will, heart, and mind, right? So all of that half is what we need to focus on, and then think about, okay, where in which particular traits do we need to enhance, and which particular traits in the bottom half on that reactive side do we need to maybe perhaps reduce a bit, and then balance out accordingly in order to then grow agility. Something I hope we can come back to in our next episode.
We most certainly shall, and we'll cover all of that. So be on the lookout for the next Agile Leadership
Next
event,
the
which is going to happen
exactly
hopefully soon. I'll post it
soon.
this week. Now, finally, we've got some other things happening in the next few weeks, so you might be interested in that. First of all, we've got the Agile 101 on the 11th of July. What will it be
Yes.
about, Arif?
Well, we're going to be moving on. Last time we talked about Scrum and
Mm.
how that applies in non-tech work. Well, we're going to carry on that theme, but now focus on Kanban, another method. How does that apply in non-tech work? So we're going to improve how to improve your flow of work, whatever the work is. So
Yes.
hopefully explore that. So do join us for that episode. We're
Do
really
join us.
excited to
Very
be
popular. We had hundreds of
on.
people last time, so yes.
Yeah, 11th of July. And then on Friday this week, we're back. What are we back with, TK? Our usual breakfast jam,
Our
isn't
usual
it? So we're
breakfast jam, yes.
back again on Friday with our usual breakfast jam audio. And we'll be talking on audio, and we'd love you to join us. Before we leave our viewers,
Hmm.
on the topic of agile leadership and
Yes,
the circle, we have an offer for our viewers, don't we, TK?
we do.
Do you want to
It's on the
explain that
screen. So essentially,
on the screen? Brilliant.
it's if you go to Humble Associates / Agile
No,
Leadership, you will
is
actually uncover that we have a special free product, a free taster for you that you can use to talk about Agile leadership with us. Arif, how does that work?
Well, I think that I hope the URL works. So I'm going to put it in the chat anyway, so that people can
Mhm.
uh, take a look. Do go to that URL in the chat. Simply take a look. Book a free coaching session with
Mhm.
us, where you'll be given the opportunity to complete a profile using this tool, assess your own leadership style, come and review it with us. We'll debrief it with you, give you some insights and some strategies, hopefully, where you can take away yourself
Mhm.
and find ways to improve your own leadership style, and then take it further from there if you wish to, of course. But as a starting point, book that session in, and obviously get started with exploring your own current leadership style,
Yeah, good point, Arif.
and see where you go from there.
And we are having quite a few clients to do that. So we're hoping to see you. It's free. It's a fun conversation, and maybe you'll be able to um, get something going and improve the way you lead. We had some great agile leaders join us for that. So I guess that's that, Arif. Any parting words?
No, we'll say thank you to all our viewers. It's been a pleasure hosting you, and we'll see you around at the next event.
See you on the next event. Bye.
Goodbye. Bye bye.